Oh, you guys cracked me up.
Oh boy.
That's gonna
And
be a good one.
yeah,
JD,
yeah.
did you fix your audio? You good? All right, cool.
Oh, alrighty. So wait a couple more minutes. Let some more people log on. It might be coming on. I'm kind of running down my list here too. People
Joe,
to
I'll share the
invite.
direct link for the Zoom into the Facebook.
Okay.
hey Joe, can I share a quick story real quick, but before we get started with the conversation we had yesterday?
Oh dear.
No,
Yeah.
it's actually kind of funny. Scott, you're gonna like this too because I'm gonna connect you with someone. So get this, Joe. So the person I talked with yesterday, the real estate investor, her name is Terry, and when I called her and I asked her, I said, "So what do you do?" I said, "What?" I asked her, she goes, "I'm a wholesaler. I'm a flipper." I said, "Well." And I tried to, remember I tried to direct her towards a local RIA group. And I said, "Where are you located?" And she says, "Well, right now I'm not located anywhere." She says, "I sold my house and it traveled in an RV across the country." I'm like, "Are you kidding me
My
right
gosh.
now?" I said, "I know a guy, one of my great friends. I'm going to connect you with." And Scott, I have a possible
Hmm.
buyer on that Russellville, Arkansas property, and she might need a lender. So when you get back to the States, we got to talk because it's kind of funny how the connection works because she travels in an RV and you travel in an RV. Maybe there's a connection there. And Joe knows kind of all about it. It's like,
She's
it's just
probably
so funny how she travels in RV across the country. She got a dog. She's traveled all over the country, still does her house flipping and wholesaling. So I don't know. What the
good
heck?
for her. She's probably neighbors with Scott right now. You just don't know.
I know.
Probably.
I just found it really funny. I'm like, well, you know, funny
Big city,
story.
small world.
Yep, yep.
That and van life is very popular. I'm Brian, by the way. I haven't introduced myself to everybody yet, but yeah, van life is very popular for people my age. I'm 32 right now, and people are like, "Hey, let's just hop in a van and go across the country." It's $80,000 for a souped up van with a bed in the back, and
Hmm.
So one of our old investors that started here in Rochester actually owns Vandemic camper vans. That's his business. He moved to Colorado and did all that
oh
stuff.
wow,
Well, I don't know how long has he been there? Like 5, 6 years now. He's been there
Oh,
for a while. It was
yeah.
pre-pandemic, and then he opened that and kind of walked. He
Long.
didn't walk away from real estate, but he makes good money doing the vans. Like it's
Yeah,
stupid.
Rick.
oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Alrighty. Let's see. Get this out. Okay. Okay, cool. Alrighty. Uh, all right. Well, thanks everybody for joining today. I'm going to do the best I can with the limited internet connectivity that I have. And during the presentation, I'll step out, maybe give you the real background of where I'm at. Um, I happen to be lucky enough to be down in Cabo, Mexico right now. No, I do not have the RV with me down here. Um, I flew from New Orleans to San Diego. My friend was having a retirement party. He got involved in self storage and it helped him to retire. He was near retirement, 34 years with the LA Fire Department, and he actually was able to retire. And so very excited about that. So went to San Diego for that. And then from there we flew down to Cabo. My wife and I have been down here in Cabo for a few days now. It's pretty awesome down here. We love it. And we Joe and I have been tossing around the idea for 2025. What topics people would like to talk about? Now, for those who don't know, this is the DealMasters group. What we do is talk about ways to make money in real estate other than being a landlord. There's a group that does that themselves. Who's in that now? Beth, Pat Gallagher, Carl Weeks run that group and you can find them on the website. They do hold meetings and all that, but that's all for landlording. But what we like to talk about is other ways to make money in real estate other than landlording. So if you have some ideas in 2025 you'd like to talk about, bring it up. We're going to ask this question this meeting, and in December's meeting, we're going to ask the same question. So reach out to Joe, Andy, myself. Let us know what topics you guys would like to talk about in 2025, and we're open. You guys may come up with an idea we didn't even think of, and we appreciate that. So, but for today's meeting, some of you may or may not know, my daughter moved to Denver 7 years ago from Rochester. And we knew once she moved out there, she wasn't coming back. She loves Denver. And if you've never been to Denver, you really should go. If you've been there, you know why she loves it so much. This summer, while we were there, she's been debating on buying a house. And so this summer, while we were there for a couple months, we decided, hey, let's go look at some houses. So we went and looked at some houses. Now, most everybody in this group, you're from Rochester, New York. So this will be related for you. They set us up to go look at some houses. We go look at like standard 3-bedroom house, probably built in 1950, that's been remodeled. Now, mind you, as I said, this is a 3-bedroom house, like something similar to what you'd find on, let's say, Culver in Rochester. These houses start for a 3-bedroom house, $600,000. They are somewhere in the range of $600,000 to $800,000. When we started looking at those houses, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Are we in California? I just was dumbfounded. And who knows, maybe Rochester will get there someday. But a house on Culver Ave, standard 3-bedroom, 1950s built, updated some, $600,000 to $800,000. That's what people in Denver are up against on buying houses there. So after having a conversation with my daughter and discovering what her mortgage payment would be, we decided to pull back on that for now. So we talked about house hacking. We looked at some duplexes, some 4 units and all that, and went to a meetup. Now, this is the power of networking. FFREIA is a great networking group. With FFREIA, you definitely should go to the holiday party. Maybe Andy will talk a little bit about that towards the end of this. I know the holiday party is coming up, I think. And then in the summertime, there's usually a picnic. Those are the 2 most powerful networking events in Rochester, New York, in real estate, hands down. I've been to a number of them, and I believe that. But so I'm on Meetup. I'm like, let's type in real estate Meetup Denver, and I've come across Brian. Brian, he comes from Denver. He's joining us from Denver today. I called him up and asked him to join us. I went to a meetup at Joyride Brewery. It's like a rooftop brewery, really cool place. Meet up with Brian and a bunch of people there. I'll let Brian talk a little bit more about that, but I'm going to say there probably was 50, 60, maybe even more people there. So we start talking, Brian. I start talking about, hey, what do you do? He's like, oh, I coach and mentor people on house hacking. Like, really? So Brian and I got talking, and I have a little bit of real estate background, as most of you know. And after talking with Brian and meeting with him a couple times, I felt confident enough in Brian to have him work with my daughter. So he is actually my daughter's mentor in buying a house to house hack. Now, she's put in some offers through various things, inspections and other things. The deals just haven't come together yet, but she is still looking. But so in Denver, she's looking for a 4 to 6 bedroom house, rent out the other ones. People are like, I don't want to live with a bunch of other people. Well, you have to realize you only have to do that for 12 months. If it's your primary residence, you buy it. Yeah, you have to live in it for 12 months. But the great thing about it, and I know Barrington knows this, in 12 months, you could buy another house. So that house you just bought can become your rental. You can buy another house. You have to live in it for 12 months again in order to qualify for FHA loan with a loan down payment and all that. Then you can do it again in 12 months. Let's say you do it in 4 years. Now you have 4 houses that are paying for themselves, probably throwing out some additional cash. And that just took 4 years. Okay. That's what my daughter's looking to do. She's very excited about it. But like I said, houses in Denver, $600,000, $800,000. Now imagine having a portfolio of 4 houses worth $600,000 that are fully paid off in, let's say, 20 years. That's not a bad retirement plan. So that's why I asked Bryan to join us today. We want to talk about house hacking, short-term rentals, midterm rentals, all that fun stuff. But I just want to thank Bryan for coming. Joe and I had a conversation with him, and I was super excited to find out Bryan could join us this morning and talk a little bit about this subject. He's coming from Denver, Colorado. Now, I'm not a morning person, and where I'm at, it's like 7 o'clock. Okay, I usually get up at 8. But I told Bryan, I said, "Hey, this thing starts at 7." He's like, "No problem. I'm up anyways." I'm like, "Okay, cool. Go ahead, join us." But Bryan, all that to say, thanks for coming. You guys are going to learn a lot. I know some people are going to watch us on the recording, but like Joe said, the networking and the one-on-one you get with a live meeting is a huge difference. But Bryan, thanks. Welcome aboard. Tell us a little bit about you, and super excited you're here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Scott. And yeah, I'm here right in Denver. It's actually snowing. There's about, gosh, I'd say about 5 inches of snow outside. It's still snowing right now. So
Wow.
yeah, pretty
Yeah, it's
excited
not
for
snowing in Chicago.
yeah, Keystone just opened up this last weekend, so I'm pretty excited to get up there. I've already got my pass and my snowboard right here in the living room, so I'm ready to go. But yeah, a little bit about me. Thanks for having me, Scott. I appreciate it. And if you guys have any questions, just jump in. But I'm from Denver. I've been in Denver since I was 5 years old. My family moved here from the East Coast, from New York City. And then pretty soon after college, I bought my first condo in downtown Denver. Now, this was a 500 square foot studio in one of the biggest high rises in downtown Denver, right there at Arapahoe and 15th. It's called Brooks Towers. And so I was paying a mortgage. I was like, oh, this is cool. I bought my first place, $160,000 back in 2015. So, pretty cheap on the lower side. And I was paying my mortgage. I was like, this is a lot. This is expensive. I'm paying 1,700 a month. I just got out of college. How can I reduce my expenses on this? And so I went to Airbnb. I was taking an Uber home one time, and the Uber guy was like, "Hey, have you thought about Airbnb on this place? You might make a killing." And I was like, "No, I haven't. That's a great idea." So I threw my little 500 square foot condo on Airbnb, and sure enough, it was just killing it. It was booked out every weekend. A few $100s a weekend. Absolutely loved it. And I was like, I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm going to retire on this one condo. This is going to be great. And then probably about 9 months later, I saw the signs that said, no rentals under 30 days are allowed here. And I was like, oh, crap. I didn't really look into that, didn't do my due diligence. And so I found a renter actually from Airbnb who was willing to stay there for 30 days at a time, so month to month. And I was like, well, you're my way in. You come in. I want to go get another Airbnb. So I moved out. I lived with my parents for a few months. I saved up some money and I bought a townhome, a 4-bedroom, 2-bath townhome, and I turned that into an Airbnb. So I was having people coming in and out. It was basically like a college hostel. I mean, I was 20 years old, 23 years old at the time, 24 or something. And I just had all these young people coming in and out, and I was making great money. And I decided to switch to long-term rental. I was just kind of getting sick of it. It was actually 2 months before COVID. I didn't know COVID was going to happen. But I was like, you know what? Like, I've got a friend who wants to rent a room from me. He'll rent a room for me for $750. I'll just do that, and I'll have another friend move into the other room, and I'll just rent these out to friends. And I like that model. So I went from the short-term rental model to the long-term rent by the room model. And I really like the model. So I did that again, rinse, wash, repeat. So I bought a 5-bedroom, 2-bath house in Lakewood in 2020, middle of COVID. And this 5-bedroom house, I was renting all 4 bedrooms out for $800 a month, and I was living in the 5th. And I was able to live for free. So, the prices in Denver, yes, they're expensive. It's hard to afford a mortgage of $3,000 a month by yourself, especially if you just moved out here from college. So this is the way to actually be able to afford a mortgage, be able to afford a house. And it's called house hacking. I got it here on my shirt. And so, guys, I feel strongly about this, especially for younger people. So I'm 32 now. I'm kind of getting over house hacking. I've got a duplex right now. I'm living in the upstairs. I rent out the downstairs. But it's best for people when they're younger. You know, if you have children, grandchildren, people who are in their 20s and 30s, this is the time to get started on house hacking because you can make, potentially a lot of money. Because think about this, you're putting 5% down on this Lakewood house. I put 5% down as $25,000. The property appreciated, little did I know, by 15% over the last 4 years. But I was also making $12,000 in cash flow every year. So the cash on cash was great because of that leverage.
Well, Brian, not to interrupt you, but what was the cost? What was the townhome $500,000 that you bought? So that was the cost of it?
So the townhome that I bought back in the day, that 4 bedroom, 2 bath, I bought that in 2018. So that was actually $250,000. Prices were great back then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it appreciated up to $400,000. And then the single family house that I bought that one for $420,000. And that one appreciated up to $500,000.
And how old were you when you were doing that?
I was 25.
Awesome. I apologize for interrupting you. I just like to let people see.
Oh,
Doesn't
please.
matter how old you are.
Yeah.
That's why, and that's great that you're in your 20s. I apologize for interrupting you. Keep going,
No,
please.
please interrupt. Anytime you have a question about my story, please just hop on in. Yeah, I was 25. I was working really hard. I was saving all my money. I've been a very big saver. So I'd always save up that 40K. And once I'd have that 30K, I'd be like, all right, I'm ready to buy a house. So I've always been a great saver. And then so that's what I would do. And so just as Scott alluded to, I would buy a house about every year, a year and a half. So now I'm 5 properties in. I'm just short of $1 million in net worth. And I'm like, okay, this is not bad. This is I'm having to obviously landlord property manage, which I don't like. But it's on a property portfolio of 4 properties. So right now I'm living in my duplex. I'm paying about $500 to live here. I'm 32 years old in Denver, Colorado, and I can afford to live here.
And by the way, do you work or is this all you do too? Were you doing that while you were working?
Right. So I used to be a water treatment operator. So I did that for 6 years. I worked with acid mine drainage, Superfund sites, and then I also worked with the city of Arvada. And I really didn't like that job as much as it paid the bills. And so while I was working that job, it was in the middle of COVID, and I was really looking at this way to leave that job. So when I bought my 4th property, I actually decided to leave and go full time as a realtor. So I am a realtor. I list properties. I help buy properties. I help investors. And then my specialty is in the creative rental strategies side.
Wow. By the way, anybody have any questions for Brian? I don't know, Scott, I don't know if you're still there or not, or Scott's trying to move. I have no idea.
I'm still here, Joe.
So yeah, anybody who says cash flow is dead in Denver is wrong, but it is difficult out here. I will say it's very difficult to cash flow, and so you have to be creative, and that's why I'm trying to teach, especially the younger generation, how we can be creative when we're young, right? Because eventually, when we're 40 years old, we're not going to necessarily want to rent out rooms in our house. But there are other strategies, even for somebody who's older. We know the 4-plex strategy. You buy 1 unit or you buy 4 units, live in one, rent out the other 3. We've done that with duplexes, triplexes, and ADUs in the back as well. We love the ADU strategy because then it's a detached additional dwelling unit in the back that you can rent out and then live in the main house, or vice versa. You live in the additional dwelling unit and you rent out the main house, and you're living for, very cheaply in Denver.
Yeah, that's one thing really cool. And I don't know if they're doing ADUs in Rochester. I didn't really learn about that till I was in California and then found out in Colorado. And here's the cool thing about working with somebody like Brian is there's certain neighborhoods in Denver that haven't adopted the ADU thing yet. It's coming and they're going to have to. But let's say if you have a house, you have the house part in the front, you have a big backyard, you can actually build a unit back there or, put something else back there to live in the back. So imagine that, yeah, the house up front paying all the bills and stuff like that, and your cash flowing, and you're living in your own separate unit in the backyard. That's a really cool concept. Like I said, I didn't learn about that till about 3 years ago when I was in California.
Absolutely. Yeah, the zoning is starting to change. In my area in particular, I've already got the zoning ability to create an ADU in my backyard, and I do have the structure. So that was kind of consideration when I bought this property. But that's becoming more popular, with especially, just like California. ADUs are going to be just a huge wave in the future uh, to make living more affordable.
What's your thoughts on, let's say, like location? I know in Rochester, you have certain locations, but for you, when you're targeting a place for like a short-term, mid-term rental, what do you look for location wise?
Yeah, good question. So for midterm and short term, midterm particularly, I like to go around the hospitals. I do have two midterms right now. And midterm, let me just explain that. It basically means over 30 days. And so there's no regulation on any rentals that are over 30 days here in Denver. So I usually do 3 to 6 month rentals, and it gives you that happy spot of like a little bit more cash flow or a little bit more income than say a long-term rental, but not as much as a short-term rental. And the hospitals are amazing out here for midterm rental, because a lot of those nurses, they have sometimes 6 month contracts, 9 month contracts, and so they need something that's not quite a full year, and then they're willing to pay the extra for the furnishings and the shorter term lease. So that's a great area. Short term rental, I say vacation markets is best for that. Vacation markets and in the downtown area a little bit. I see a lot of people trying to short term rental out in my area, and I used to try that as well. And now it's gotten so saturated because this is Adams County, so the zoning is very friendly on short term rental. But because of the saturation, the money's just not worth it to me out here, and so that's why I stick to the long term strategy out here in Adams County.
Can I ask a real quick question here? On these properties, how did you finance them? Did you do hard money? Did you go to a bank? What did you do? Because
Yeah,
everyone says, okay, yeah, it's great. The story is great. And then 99% of the people don't have the money. And
yeah.
the main thing is, how the heck did he do it?
Yep, absolutely. So when I bought my first condo, that was where I actually borrowed money from my parents. I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna pay you back. Like, I really want to get out of my rental situation." I had just been evicted with a friend because I paid the rent, but I guess he didn't hand the money off to the landlord. So we got evicted, and there's definitely I was suspicious of my friend on what he did with that money. But long story short, I was like, hey, I can't do this rental thing anymore. I want to buy a place. Like, mom, dad, can you help me? Like, I'll pay you back. I just got a job. It's great, and they were so on board. They actually, my parents, they've had a rental property on the side throughout my childhood. And so I kind of learned from them as well. And so that's how I financed my first one. And then we actually just did a refinance. They got all their money back out, and then I took over the loan. So it worked out perfectly. And then for the properties after that, I actually just saved up. I saved up a lot of money, and then I was able to use leases. So for my condo, I used a long-term lease to show that, hey, this property is covered. And then on my single family, I was able to actually use all 5 leases, believe it or not, and create a master lease, and then show the lender that, hey, my debt to income is covered. So it really is a debt to income ratio that they're looking at when you're buying using your W-2, using a conventional, 5% down loan. And you can have up to 10 of those conventional loans. You just have to qualify with your debt to income.
Can you expand on how in regards to the master lease, how you use that to get the financing? We actually talked about that. We touched upon that actually a couple of weeks ago at our live meeting. People were using that to be able to get loans on properties. Actually, we're talking about on that commercial part.
Okay. Yeah, so I was doing the rent by the room strategy on this property, and I brought my lender all five leases, saying, "Hey, I've got five people living there," and they wouldn't take it. They wouldn't take all five leases. They said, "Hey, forget it. You have to do a master lease. That's the only way we'll take this." So that's what I did. I just redid the whole lease. I had all my tenants sign it. I was like, if this is okay, and that was to qualify for my next property. So then I had a master lease that had 850 times five, and that was all on there. And then they used that to counteract my mortgage, my debt.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, it's called border income, and sometimes they even do it for a rent by the room scenario, but it's less common, and it's most common with fourplexes, triplexes, and duplexes. So that's where you can really get that border income up. So say, you can't qualify for a 700,000 duplex. Well, you might be wrong. Maybe if you get that lease on that other side and that lease is 1800, you take that to your lender, you say, "Hey, now can I qualify?" Well, now you might be able to qualify.
So I actually met Troy from iCore down in Charlotte a couple weeks ago. He was at the National REIA Leadership Convention with me, and he actually brought up pad split to do room sharing and kind of not necessarily midterm short term stuff. But do you have any experience with pad split at all or anything like that? Because apparently that's a pretty big push. He's actually got a pad split affiliate set up now for his REIA.
What is a pad fit or pad split?
Basically, it's where you list if you have a house that you're renting or you have a house that you own and you want people to live in individual rooms, so like a room sharing, but it's like Furnished Finder or uh realestate.com or whatever, any place where you can find rentals up for rent, whether it's Zillow or whatever people are using, but it's specific to room sharing in a single family or a multifamily or even with an ADU, I guess you could use pad split. So
Yes. Yeah, that's actually been very popular by the airport. They actually call them crash pads. And it'll be 25 pilots or people that work in the airport industry, and they'll actually split a place. So they'll all pay about what, $250, and it'll have a bunch of bunks. And I've seen those, and I've never done these before, but I've seen those, and I know they're very lucrative. It's basically house hacking on steroids. And then same thing with out in the mountains too. I did have a friend actually last year. She was trying to reach out to me, and it was going to be 12 of us splitting a place, doing exactly that in Vail or somewhere near that. And the only hard part with that is getting the landlords that are going to allow it. So yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of room there because not a lot of landlords are open to 15 people all hopping on a lease.
yeah, and the pad split, I guess, handles the lease and the rent collection and the money and the distribution and everything,
Oh
and it
wow.
just drops it in the landlord's account. So pad split's kind of like a tool where it speeds all that stuff up.
Oh, that's
It's just
really
funny
cool.
you're in Denver, iCore's
Yeah.
Denver, so
No, that's great to know. I'll definitely look into that. Yeah, even some of my friends we thought about doing this for just going up to the mountains to ski. So no, that's a great idea. Any other questions on house hacking? Any other thoughts? People who who might be interested, feel free to give them my contact. I'll put out my contact out here too. I love talking about it. Like I said, I'm 32 years old. I'm about to be, $1 million in net worth, which I'm still shocked to even be able to say. But that was all just from buying properties, and just living in them for a year and then buying another one. And here I am kind of like, okay, what's next? And so I was able to, I'm financially free. So I was able to just actually rescue some kittens, which was great. I got three kittens here that I saved under the bridge. And, I kind of look at it as like I had the time to do that, because I'm a realtor. So my schedule's flexible and I don't work, 40 hours a week anymore. And so, yeah, I'm kind of just really going into my passions. And I think that's really important for anyone, it's to have that freedom um, to really dive into their passions and their interests. So
Yeah. I okay, Joe, I did it. I moved. That's my real background here. See my snow in the background?
I think I see
Yeah, there we
Jaws
go.
behind you. You better be careful.
That's right. Um, But yeah, I did. I moved out to outdoors here, and I think I got a good connection. But um, to me, the thing I like about this, I mean, Brian at 32 years old to have, $1 million net worth. That's and we're talking net worth, not like, okay, he has $1 million worth of properties. He has a net worth of $1 million at 32 years old. Now, it took me a lot longer than 32 years old to get there myself. I kind of did the other way, working a job, putting money in retirement and all that. But yeah, and that was saving money. But this is why I like this program, and I look at it and I encourage all young people to do that. Look to buy a duplex, a 4 unit, house hack, do something like that. Because let's say in Rochester, average house is $200,000. In 5 years, you have five houses. If you do this right with minimal down payment, 3%, 5% down, and in 15, 20 years when these are paid off, you have properties and assets that are worth over $1 million. So that's why I really like this program. And somebody else is paying the bills. That's the thing. You aren't putting the time, effort, and energy into it like you are at a job to do that. This is building on the side. And while you're doing this, you can still, work your job or build a business, do something like that. That's what I really like about real estate. And it was later in life that I learned that. We come out of high school, we come out of college, like, okay, you have to get a job, you have to work, you have to put money in retirement, hopefully you get a pension, this, that, the other. Um, it wasn't until later in life that I learned this. And that happens with a lot of people. That's it doesn't matter if you're 60 years old and you want to start doing this, you can. Okay, 60, 70. Oh, I can't do it. I'm too old. No, I don't want to hear that because you could do this at 60 years old, make it your primary residence. So what? You got to live with some other people for a year. Oh, well, sorry. It's not that big a deal. Um, and if you buy a 4 unit, you live in one, you rent the other three out. Not a huge deal. Um, but now, Brian, and I don't know in Rochester, to me, I don't know if ADUs are going to become a thing or not. I think, given the environment in Rochester, that could become something. Andy and Joe, you might be able to speak better on something like that. Do you see where Rochester might start allowing ADUs there?
Zoning and everything else. I don't know. I think Andy would know better than I would.
They've talked about it, but the state only recently, and I don't even know if it's finalized yet, but the state had to pass some legislation to make ADUs an actual like legal structure in New York. And I'm pretty sure that happened this year. I'm pretty sure that's done, but I haven't been following it super closely. Rochester's talked about it, but they're so focused on good cause eviction and rent control right now that everything else is getting pushed to the side until that gets in or whatever. They're after it hard. And obviously banning STRs across the city, which they've already sort of started that process. So,
Well, the other issue too in the city, the houses are so close together. In a lot of areas, you're not going to have the space, so that's going to be relegated to people who actually have the space because you know how zoning is over here.
yeah, some people have talked about being able to convert ADUs in properties that exist that have a basement that could have an access added, like a walkout basement or maybe even in some cases an egress set of like Bilko basement stairs or whatever coming out of the back. They won't allow it for a window well. They've already basically said we're not doing that. That's a fire escape. So that's already kind of been shot down. People are converting garages. People are converting, sheds, stuff like that. Those kits on Amazon you can buy for 20 grand and make it into an ADU. So people have tried to get zoning to put like 5 of those on a piece of like an empty piece of infill. They've tried to like get that approved. I don't think it's gone anywhere yet, but
And all that to say is if you hear that coming to a neighborhood near you, get in early and adopt that. Take advantage of it. Find these properties that are going to have ADU capabilities because that adds a tremendous value, in my opinion, to those properties. I mean, when we're out looking at houses, I'm out looking at my daughter, Ashley. She happens to be on the Zoom now. Yeah. And me being the dad's like, oh, hell, you can build a nice ADU back here, thinking from that perspective. But, but, but that adds a ton of value to have that bigger backyard. Now, all of a sudden, yeah, it's nice to have a big backyard, but it's more maintenance, blah, blah, blah. But to be able to put an ADU out there is tremendous. That adds a tremendous amount of value. Um, but yeah, Brian, how do you deal with that? And maybe it's going to be different in Rochester than it is in Denver, but let's say you put a apartment in the basement there, you finish out the basement, you put an apartment in there. How do you, give people, like secure escape out of there? Let's say there's a fire in the top floor. What do you guys put in place? Because, most places just have those little tiny windows to get out of.
Yeah, so we do like to put egress. Egress wasn't always a thing in Colorado, so a lot of times we have to add that, which is about 3,500 per window. So egress is good if you're going to rent out a basement, but also like in my duplex, it's an actual duplex. It's got a walkout. So a lot of times the walkout basements are huge if you have that. Otherwise, a very popular floor plan out here in Colorado is just the stairs up and then that with the walkout to the backyard. That way they can enter from the backyard, go down to their unit, and then the top unit can come in the front. So yeah, we definitely specialize in that in Colorado, just changing those up downs into actual, dual kitchens, dual washer and dryers, actual duplexes, non-conforming. So very popular out here. But yeah, it is important to have an egress because if you don't have an egress or at least a door out, you do run the risk if there is a fire or anything like that.
I just want to ask a real quick question here. Obviously, you're a real estate agent, and besides people want to know how to buy them and how to do what you do, they also want to know how you find them. I know you're a real estate agent, obviously go on the MLS.
Mm-hmm.
What else do you do? Do you advertise? Do you go to wholesalers? Do you go to meetings, network, people bringing you stuff? How are you finding them, Brian?
For sure. I would say mainly on the MLS. I do get some off markets. I have people that come to me and they say, hey, can you, sell this off market or do we need to list it? So I do get, pre-listings. I have some listings that are coming up here soon that are off market right now. So, of course, I know about those. But mainly on the MLS right now, it's not like you just find a deal on the MLS. You make a deal on the MLS, right? You have to you find the deal first, and then you make it work for your numbers. So a lot of times, those deals are all overpriced. But hey, if you can, shave off 40K, 50K, you might have a deal there. Okay, if you go through inspection and now you can get 20K in seller credit, that's going to bring your interest rate down by a couple percentage. Maybe that's a good deal for you. And I think the numbers are very, personal as well, because some people are, they're out here, they're like, hey, I could just offset my mortgage by $1,000. That's great. And then other people are like, hey, how do I live for free? And so those numbers are very, very different for people. So it really depends, but I think any deal will work for the right person, depending on the numbers.
So what's the formula that you use to see if it's going to be a good deal? Like you said, everybody's different. Do you have a specific formula? And if you do, what is it?
Yeah, well, so if people want a cash flow, I like to tell people that they need to stay above that 5 bedroom. So that 5, 6, I even have friends that rent out 7 bedrooms in a house, which is unbelievable. I know, and a lot of people, you might not want to do that. So what I like to say is it's a spectrum, right? And it's a comfortability to cash flow spectrum. So you could be on one side and it's like, hey, I just want to rent out one room and I'm gonna have to pay $1,000 and then they're gonna pay $1,000, but that's fine. And then the other spectrum is I'm gonna live in a closet and I'm gonna rent out 7 bedrooms and I'm actually gonna cash flow $1,500. And so, it's not a specific model. It's what works for the person. I've got one guy and a client, he just bought a 6.3 at high interest rates. And he's like, no, I want to live in one. I'm going to rent out all other 5 for $900 a month. And he's living for free, even in this high interest rate environment. So yeah, the model really depends on the person.
Wow.
Brian, we had a question come in on the chat. What is an ADU? I know he explained it a little bit before, but
Mm-hmm.
can you go in a little more detail what a ADU is from your
Yeah.
perspective?
So an ADU is an additional dwelling unit. You've got detached and attached additional dwelling units. So those are called either DADUs or let's see, detached or attached AADUs. So we like the detached ADUs, right? Because then you have some separation. Um, but an attached ADU can almost be like the place I'm living in, where it's got the attached downstairs mother-in-law suite. So that's similar to an attached ADU. Does that answer your question? And Seattle, like Seattle is very big. I follow this guy Thatch, and he's really big in buying these properties in Seattle that are ADUable, and then adding that ADU, and then basically doubling that value on that property. It's insane. Like Scott was saying earlier, if you can find the zoning, and before it's going to happen or as it's happening, you really can up the value on these properties just by adding an additional dwelling unit in the back. That
Cool.
being said, also, I do want to caveat one more thing. The lending is a little bit difficult. So I know Thatch, one of the ADU gurus I follow, he has lenders that will lend on ADUs, but it's a little bit trickier than you'd think, right? You're not going to go to your normal conventional lender and be like, "Hey, can I get lending to build this, tiny house in my backyard?" So it's something to consider as well. Is sometimes what people do is they put the cash in and then they refinance to get the cash out.
Well, another question too. Yeah, let's say I'm a new young investor and uh what if you have a 5, 6 bedroom house and the biggest fear is what if A, nobody moves in, or B, everybody moves out at the same time? You know, do you have any suggestions on how to maybe help minimize that or prevent that?
Yes, I've had it happen before, and it didn't end up being such a big deal. Not everybody at one time, but at least majority of the rooms were leaving at the same time. And it wasn't too bad, it maybe took an extra couple weeks to get them filled. But you can stagger them, is what I like to do. So I like to stagger my leases in some cases. That way you're not having to deal with everything at once. But I like to stagger them in the summer in particular because the summer is the best time to rent out in Denver. So you could have one lease that ends May and then another one that ends in July, and kind of that way that you're not having to do it all at once. So in some situations, I actually, I have one that's been great right now. It's my Lakewood 5 bedroom house, and one of the tenants there just keeps pushing me his friends. So I just keep getting his friends, and I'm like, all right, we'll see if this works, and I'll talk to him, and then vet him, and then it's like, okay, he's a good guy, and then I'll put him in. So I haven't even had to find any of these tenants. Actually, it's been all the one tenant and all of his friends. And then
Cool.
when it comes to being empty as well, it's just a price point, right? So if you're renting it for 900 and nobody's reaching out, there's no traffic coming through, then maybe you have to drop it to 850. And if somebody's still not coming through, then maybe you have to drop it to 750. And then you have to be careful with not getting the wrong tenant at 750, but finding that balance, and then making sure that you're still vetting the tenant properly. And I use Zillow for that, but background check, credit check. There's multiple different ways to do those background checks.
And is there a place to go? Like I know in Rochester, some people use Rentometer and things like that to find out what you can get for a place. Because we're saying BS think you're gonna get $1,000 a room and find out you can only get 600.
The way I do that is just looking on Zillow or on Marketplace, mostly Marketplace for rooms because that's where people are going to be renting out these rooms. So now you can see, okay, this room's going for 800, this one's going for 850, 900. And then you get an idea of what they're renting for. And then I like to also just run my numbers on the conservative side. So if you think you can get 900, run the numbers at 800. How do they look at 800? Because, you never know. You might get desperate in the winter and you might have to rent a room for 750. So, yeah, keeping all that in mind for sure.
What about cash reserves? How do you have like a rule of thumb that you use for like a cash reserve to have in your account?
Yes, I like to, so everybody does this differently. Some people like to take part of their cash flow and put that on the side for cash reserves. Personally, I like to just have $10,000 per property just sitting in on the side in a savings account. And that just makes me feel comfortable. Reserves is one of the most important things. You really don't want to have to, sell the property at the wrong time. Um, Something happens with the furnace, now you don't have the money for it. So yeah, 10,000 per property. I think that's great. And then you have your credit lines, your credit cards, or a HELOC or something like that that you can pull from, if there was another emergency. But yeah, so important to have your reserves for sure.
What about like a bathroom ratio? You know, 6 bedrooms, you certainly don't want to have one bathroom in it. Do you have like a ratio that you run, like when you're renting it out, per person, how many bathrooms you'd like to have per bedroom?
Yeah, good question. So we've done a lot of the 6.2s and the 5.2s. And so I've got a Lakewood property where there's three bedrooms on one bathroom. And that works fine. They're each rented for $850 a month, each of those bedrooms, and they're happy with it. At the same time, as I'm getting older, I'm starting to be like, that's a lot of people for one bathroom. So it's more of a personal preference, but I like to have one bathroom for two bedrooms. And that's just more comfortable for the tenants. Three people is kind of a lot. And that's just my preference. It doesn't mean it doesn't work to have three on one. But yeah, it makes a difference. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, cool. And then when it comes to, okay, let's say you want to get a 4 unit or 5 unit or 6 unit, um, you know, like quad, what when does the financing change? When does it like become more of a commercial type loan on that?
Yeah, so after 4 units, it becomes a commercial loan. So yeah, I really work with four and under, because that's a residential property that's using a conventional financing loan. You can still do a 5% down with a fourplex, believe it or not, which is insane. And then once you get into fiveplex, that's where you have to start putting down 20%, and you can't leverage as much. So
Cool. And I know you're gonna, put your contact information in the chat box, which is great. Um, for people to reach out to if they have questions and stuff like that. I will say another thing I learned late in life is like hiring coaches or mentors. Now, granted, Brian's in Denver, but a lot of the same things are going to apply in Rochester. He's not going to know all the rules and stuff like that, but I'm sure Brian's willing to help you. Maybe he has like a reduced thing or something like that. You guys can work out the details on that, but I think that like I said, I learned late in life, like to hire a coach, somebody who knows what they're doing, somebody can kind of look at your portfolio and help you with that. And it's funny, about 3, 4 years ago, I was with my tax preparer. He's like, why do you pay all these coaching fees? Well, what is this all about? He goes, you know what you're doing. Why are you paying this? And I had to look at the bottom line number of my income. I said, see that? See how that's increased over the years? That's because I paid this, the coaching fees. So that's something that with the right coach, mentor, don't be afraid to do it. It's somebody who's going to help you get there quicker. Um, so for anybody out there thinking, do I need to hire a coach, this, that, the other, just look at it from that perspective. They're going to help you get further faster. And that's why, after talking with Brian, I've vetted him pretty good. He may or may not know that, but that's why I feel very comfortable having him work with my daughter. Because I'm not there. And but no, I appreciate that. Now Ashley knows me better than anybody else. I could talk forever, but I don't want to. Does anybody else have any other questions? I know kind of sometimes you sit there silently and go, should I ask a question or not? So I'm just going to shut up and just let somebody else ask a question if they want to.
yeah, please.
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. I'm brand new here, Brian, and like what you had to say. And like Scott, I would love to get my daughter connected with you. I think she's 26 years old. If she heard your story, I think she'd be really inspired. And I think so when you give your information, I'd like to connect you.
Yes, please. Yeah, I would love to talk with her. And yeah, that goes for anybody else too. I love talking house hacking and real estate. And, it's a goal for me to help as many people become financially free as possible. So, please.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Mhm. And yeah, I just texted my information as well. So I'm with Coldwell Banker. That's my Coldwell Banker email, and there's my number as well, my cell. Feel free to text me, save my contact information. Like I said, I'm happy to talk to anybody about my house hacking strategies and real estate and whatnot.
Brian, I got a really quick question. When you look at properties, have you ever considered ones that need help, or you just go for turnkey properties just to make your life easier in regards to time?
Good question. Yeah, I actually kind of tried to do a burr. It was not too long ago. It was in 2022, and the prices were insane, and I just did not like it. Put in a ton of work, put like 40K into it, bought it for 180, put 40K into it, and then I was looking at the value. I'm like, shoot, that I didn't really do the numbers so right. The value is like 230, so I basically break even on this place now. Now it's being rented out. It's a rental because real estate's forgiving. So I'm just like, hey, I'll rent it out for a while and make the money back, and then I'll sell it down the road. But it was a great experience. It was a lot of time into a rehab that I didn't enjoy, and in the middle of it, I was also a realtor. So I was dealing with trying to show properties and also rehab this property. And I was like, you know what? I need to focus on one thing.
So you were doing the work yourself?
I wasn't doing all the work, but I was doing a lot of it. I was helping. I had a contractor that was working aside with me, and if he was doing like the major stuff, I was doing the cleanup and kind of handing him tools and whatnot. So yeah, I was there for many hours to try to learn and like I said, like it was a great experience, but I also realized that I don't like flipping properties or rehabbing properties. I'd rather have the turnkey property because you also got to think about time when you're renting, right? So if it's going to take 3 months to fix this place up, well, that's 3 months that maybe you lost, a few thousand per month or a couple thousand per month. So that being considered, it almost makes more sense to buy that turnkey rent ready property and just get it going, unless there's a really big margin. And the margins right here in Denver are very compressed. I know flippers that they know what they're doing. They're contractors. They'll go in there and do it for 20,000, 50 cents on the dollar. Well, I'm going to pay 80 cents on the dollar. So it doesn't make sense for me, as opposed to these flippers that know what they're doing.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, great question. I still think sweat equity is a great play though. So don't get me wrong.
Hmm.
Any other questions, guys?
Got shy people.
Come out to Denver. I do a meetup every fourth Wednesday of the month, besides Christmas. And it's a great meetup. Like Scott said, I've been doing it for 3.5 years now. And we'll usually have between, 50 and 60 people. Or if you know anybody in Denver who would be interested, let them know. It's right over at Sloan's Lake. And yeah, reach out to me for that information as well.
Cool. Uh, A question for you, Brian. I have in Rochester, in some locations, they have a only so many unrelated people can live together in a unit, or in a house. Is there a rule like that that applies in Denver that you know of?
So there were similar rules. For a while in Denver, it was no more than five unrelated people. I think since they've, and I'll have to fact check this, but I think since they've just gotten rid of most of those, or they at least don't really go by those guidelines. I know in Denver they definitely got rid of the five rule because there were just a lot of um, bigger households and whatnot, and but yeah, it's usually over five is allowed in Denver, of
Okay, cool. Thanks.
course.
Well, Do you have a max do you have a max that some people I talk to, they're not willing to pay over a certain price in regards to return? Obviously, that's depending on who you are, but sometimes after you go after a certain number, it's not worth it. What's your maximum and what's the most expensive property that you've bought that's worked for you so far?
Most expensive, gosh. I've really been lucky. The most expensive property I bought was probably my Lakewood property in 2020, and I bought that for $420,000. So I really lucked out there. No, I think that the max is somewhere around that 650, 700. But it really is more of a cash flow. So it's okay. Like, are you paying 700 for a 2-bedroom house? Because I have clients that will do that. It's like, that's fine. But if you're trying to house hack, you don't want to pay 700 or 600 for a 2-bedroom house. But you could pay 650 or 700 for a 6-bedroom house. Now, I think that makes great sense, right? Because if you look at it from a mortgage to rent perspective, it works. So yeah, it depends on the room to bathroom ratio, and then anything above, 700, it probably should be a duplex or a triplex at that point. We're seeing triplexes out here that we can actually get for 900, 850 or so, on the lower end. So.
Those are crazy prices compared to Rochester. If you knew what they charge out here for, you'd faint. Of course, it's all relative.
Right.
A fraction of what you pay.
Yeah, I don't even want to know. I'll move over there if I hear it.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the houses. I mean, we just did a house which we picked up for I don't know, like $30,000, a 3-bedroom, 1 bath, which that over there would be, $300,000-$400,000, which is insane to us.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, we need to come up with a company that just, picks up the houses and then just drives them over to a better location and then puts them right there.
Thinking that for the
Yep.
same thing for years, Brian.
Yeah.
Did you figure out how? Let me know. We're in.
All right.
It's the taxes that kill you here. It's like, what is it,
Yeah.
$4,000 for every 100,000 in value, basically? 3-4 grand, depending
Yeah.
on where you are.
Oh, yeah.
Adds up quick.
Yeah.
Crushes
That's the
crushes
perfect
your
number to
mortgage
put.
payment and cuts your equity build in half, basically. Like, everybody's like, oh, it's so cheap in upstate New York to buy houses. Yeah, it is, but most of your mortgage payment goes to taxes, not to the property. So you're not actually earning any equity. Good luck. Bye. Cash flow.
Yeah. My house I sold in 2020, I sold it for 200,000, which out in Denver would be for probably $1 million house. But anyways, well, my property tax on that were 7,200 a year. And traveling across the country, I run into people. All my property taxes are going up $500 a year. Oh, what are they going up to? Oh, they're going to be 2,100. I'm like, dude, okay, you have a kid. I'm from New York. My taxes were 7,200 a year. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah, $7,200 a year, $600 a month just for property taxes. So there's good and bad with every market. I will say to this day, Rochester is one of the best markets to make money in. If you want to get into real estate and make money, if you can't do it in Rochester, don't try to do it someplace else. Okay. Learn in Rochester. If you live there, learn there, and you're just going to make so much money there. So what if the property taxes are high? Big deal. You'll get the rents to justify it. But Arnett. So yeah, no, cool, Brian. I appreciate it. Anybody else have any other questions? We're gonna continue on with questions, but Brian, thanks for joining us. And like I said, this is a great way for people. You don't learn this in college. You don't learn this in high school. Most of your parents don't know this. I didn't know this when I got started. I encourage all kids buying a place, buy a 2, 3, or 4 family house, especially in Rochester. Do that for your first house. 20 years from now, it's paid off. You have options to do what you want. Yeah, and that's it. That's why I appreciate Brian joining us, talking a little bit about the different ways he does it. And it's always good to get a perspective from somebody, in a different market. And that's why I'm super excited to have Brian join us today. But if what we can do, we'll hang out for a little bit. This is kind of when we do questions on anything in real estate. Like I said, except for landlording. If somebody has a landlord question, we'll let it ask and we quickly move. We'll answer that question, but we'll quickly move away from it because we have the other group that does that. But does anybody have any questions or anything you're seeing in real estate or any other questions for Bryan? Let's kind of open this up and see what questions people have on anything in real estate.
I have one. Is there anybody doing built for rent stuff in Denver, or is that staying mostly relegated to pre-existing homes that are just being remodeled?
I've heard about it a little bit, but it's a very small sliver out here right now. I think it's getting more popular. I have, a friend who's a big investor who's doing exactly that, but just very small scale. So I think there is a lot of room for that. Yeah.
I figure it's probably an equity play more than a cash flow play because construction, at least around here, New York, it's like $225 a square foot to do like cookie cutter box type construction. You might be able to get it a little lower, but not significantly. Denver's got to be a little higher, I would imagine, just because cost of living is higher. So not sure what the square foot prices are, but that's a big bill to swallow. So I mean, it's good for depreciation and there's a whole bunch of benefits that go with it, right? But
Absolutely. Yeah, it's more of an appreciation play for sure. I don't think you'd make much cash flow on those developing them, but yeah.
So Bryan, I mean, obviously you're doing this, you're 32 years old. You don't really have to work. I mean, you kind of sort of do, but I guess you kind of choose to, which is great. What the heck is your goal and what do you want to do? I mean, do you have a certain amount of houses you want to buy? Do you want to stick to this model? Do you want a world domination? Do you want like $1 million a month? What the heck are you looking to do here? I mean, what are you looking to get from all of this that you're doing? I know you've got four right now and 32 years old and in a great place. Obviously, where you're at is snowing right now, and Scott's 3,000 to 4,000 miles away, and it's beautiful and sunny out. He's in a t-shirt with sun, and you're about ready to get a snow shovel. So it's so
Yeah.
funny when you guys go back and forth between your screens right now.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I've really started to think about that a lot. Really the question on like what's enough, right? And it's like for me, I'm not trying to be, a billionaire, like all these crazy, portfolios and properties. I actually am just trying to be a small and mighty investor. I don't know if you guys have heard of Coach Carson. He wrote the book Small and Mighty Investor. And so he talks about basically having three properties paid off and like what that would look like for you versus going for scale, because, originally I was kind of more in this scale mindset. And I think I scaled pretty quickly, which was great. And but then I was like, you know what? I need to stop. I need to, start smelling the roses, if you will. And so finding out what's enough, right? And so I'm not done buying properties necessarily, but I'm not trying to scale to this insane place, like some people are. And that's okay if they want to do that. But I'm more looking at it as like, okay, can I be financially free? Can I go spend time in Cabo like Scott's doing? I actually just spent like, let's say, I think 12 days in Cabo a year ago. So like I did exactly that. I spent 12 days in Cabo. I went to a hostel. I did the thing, and that's really what I'm about. Just enjoying my life and financial freedom. So and on that too, it's not like I'm full. I put it on a spectrum of like there's lean financial independence and then there's like super fi, right? It's like I'm kind of more on the lean fi side where it's like, yeah, my needs are all covered, but I still have to be a realtor to cover the extra vacations and the fun stuff, right? That I do. So the goal would be to be super fi, right? So it's to the point where you've got extra income that you can just kind of throw away money, if you will. So that's the goal, but
So,
not a certain number of properties.
so what's your day usually like? You sleep in till 12 o'clock like Scott does, eat lunch and go back to bed. After lunch, get to relax or what? Just kidding, Scott.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you do? Do you wake up early, sleep in late? Do you work? Do you have a schedule? How do you do what you do?
Yeah, it's a little all over the place, but yeah, no, I wake up early, I go to the gym. Some days, I'm a realtor, so some days I have crazy 13, 14-hour days where I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe, just nonstop just from calls and contracts. I'm going out and doing showings. I'm very active as a realtor. And then other days, I have the time off and I'll just, grab my snowboard. I'll just go out and snowboard and hit Keystone. So I'm very flexible that way, and then I try to bulk my schedule. So I try to schedule everything on certain days so that I get everything done, and then say tomorrow I'll have the whole day off and I'll go up to DeVale. So that's how I like to do it, and it's very all over the place. So it's a roller coaster schedule, as I like to call it.
Wow.
Mhm. Today, for instance, I'll go to a listing appointment and then I'll go check on a property on the paint job on a property, and then what else will I do? Might go shovel. We'll see.
Yeah, this year is weird. It was
Yeah.
70. What was it? It was 70 up here in New York.
80.
Well, it was 80 2 days, and it was like 70 for a high yesterday, and then it dropped into the 50s. But like normally, right now we have a few inches of snow. We haven't even seen snow. We haven't even had a freeze yet. We've had nothing. It's the weirdest year ever. So
Don't
not that
jinx
I'm
it.
complaining. I mean, the snow can stay away. If it's not going to hit and like give me like 4 or 5 feet so I can use the snowmobile, I don't care.
Yeah. It'll come out of nowhere. I mean, it was just nice 3 days ago, and then it started snowing like crazy here. It's just
That's crazy.
flip flop.
Good for skiing though, right?
Absolutely.
Brian, what do you read? Who do you follow?
What do I'm really big on Bigger Pockets. I've read most of the Bigger Pockets books. Bigger Pockets is actually headquartered. Do you guys know what Bigger Pockets is?
We actually
Oh
had
yeah.
Ashley Kerr at our group a couple
Oh,
months ago.
awesome.
She lives in Buffalo, so she was like, "Okay, I'll come out."
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I know of Ashley Cairn. I've gone to their conferences. I used to work with Craig Kurlop, who was a big house hacker guy. And yeah, no, I love the Bigger Pockets community. So I follow a lot of them. And that's mainly it. That was, before when I started house hacking, I actually didn't know other people were doing it. And then all of a sudden I found Bigger Pockets. I was like, oh my gosh, there's people doing it just like me. Like I don't feel so lonely anymore. So yeah,
Cool.
Bigger Pockets is great.
Awesome.
Right. Hmm.
Yeah,
Any
John,
other
I'm glad you
questions?
asked a question about goals and stuff like that. Actually, that is going to be our topic of discussion for December is goal setting and going into 2025 and what do you want to accomplish and things like that. So December, our Zoom is going to be that. And so we're going to have a guest on to be determined. The one guest I wanted to have on had something come up last minute, so he's not able to make it, but that's okay. We'll find somebody for sure. And um, and like I said, everybody, think about what subjects or topics you want to talk about in 2025, dealing with real estate. Of course, we're going to have one, finding deals. We're going to have that, of course. And, things work out right. We'll probably talk about self-storage. So, that's a couple of the topics. But like I said, there's topics out there that we aren't even thinking of that people think of that would be a very interesting topic to talk about. Um, but does anybody have any questions, whether it's for us or somebody else on the Zoom or Brian or anything like that? Let's go ahead and get those answered.
Hey,
I don't.
Scott, sorry.
Go ahead, Gabe.
Um, are we able to mention topics now, or should we wait till
Yeah.
later? And I want to mention it to the group because I know I talked to you about it, and um, I'd like to mention or suggest a topic for next year. AI. I'm really big on that. And I think it's helped me tremendously, especially in this last deal that I'm doing. And I haven't used it as much as I, have in the year until now, but it's come a long way and it's going to get better and not necessarily better. And it depends on how you look at it. But I think it's something that we should look into. And I'm not an expert by any means, but the more and more I use it, it's like it's in real estate in every part of your life, especially real estate that we do. I think it's something that we should, discuss and just an idea, but it's really cool.
It's a
We
great
did.
topic. I
Yep, we
agree.
did a big section on AI and VAs actually for helping to run the RIAs when we were down, and there was a bunch of tools that people talked about just for their members. It was like, oh, here's a tool that lets you do all of your property research, all of your local rent research, all of your skip tracing, all of your this, all of your that, all built into one tool, and then half of it's run by AI. It'll auto dial. It has like all the dialers in there to dial, distressed sellers or potentially distressed sellers, tired landlords. It sorts them all for you. It has all that information in there and it keeps track. And if they're on a do not call list, it lists every single person who's already on a do not call, do not text, do not whatever. It's insane. It's insane. It's super cool though, because it's taking like four different tools. It's taking skip tracing, it's taking auto dialers, it's taking CRM, it's taking all the research, it's taking all the property values from online and all that kind of stuff. It's taking who the real owners are, it's doing title searches, it's doing all that crap, and it's all built into one tool. It's nuts.
It is nuts. And you know what I'm trying to do now? I'm still trying to learn it. Is I Google AI. I've been trying to put together a program, and it's very hard to do a little bit, but I'm still learning through it. Is I'm trying to look at it has the ability to look on Google Maps, and if you pick a specific demographic, to look for self-storage properties that are or are not listed on maps. It gives like an image rendering of the property, and it actually finds them for you and populates the data and stuff like that, and it can put it all on a list for you. I'm still learning it. It's a challenge, but it has the ability to do that. So all I have to do is literally click a button, and boom, they're all my storage properties and the ones that are not listed, which is the gold mines, of course, as we know. And if I learn that, guys, you got to pay me $5,000. So yeah, so that's
Nice.
gonna be the
Yeah.
one I'm learning through.
Yeah. This app, they got smart and they built all those things into it and added a bunch of AI functionality and stuff because it used to just be a driving for dollars app. It's Deal Machine. It used to be just, oh, here you go. You can plan your route and do all this stuff. Well, now it's got all of the other stuff baked into it and it's
Yeah,
like a no-brainer.
yeah, it's nuts.
And you can program it to do AI calls, so you don't even have to have a VA do it necessarily. Like you can pre-program a script and it'll respond on texts and stuff like that and it'll keep up on it. It'll like it's insane. I've never like I thought I knew a little bit of what was going on, but these guys like just dumped a crap load of money into research and development, and they've changed it from the driving for dollars app to something that's actually like, why would you have five other services? Just use this.
Yeah,
Yeah, I remember Deal Machine. Yeah.
yeah. Well, the problem
Dave,
with
I know we talked about you wrote a like a marketing piece for a storage property looking to sell. And I know you used AI. How many hours pre-AI do you think you would have spent doing that? And how much time did it take you post AI? And this is very early stages AI stuff that he's doing. How long was it to do it before, and how long is it now?
so if
Would
it
you
was
say?
yeah, so if it was pre-AI, it would have taken me about, I would say, a good amount of the day. So I would say because I had to put all the research together and they'll plug it in, stuff like that. So maybe about 8 hours, maybe a whole day. I use ChatGPT and I give it all the information. I mean, I was very specific. I primed it, and yet there's certain ways I use ChatGPT. An hour. It took me an hour, and it wrote the whole thing for me,
Wow.
and it revised it, and it took me at the most an hour and a half. Done. I'm like, all right, that's it. I mean, it cut a lot of time, a ton of time. You know.
Cool. And that, the hour and a half it took was you putting it into AI, but then also reading it. I've done some things in
Yeah.
AI and it's like, okay, that's cool, but then you change the wording a little bit. I know you and I kind of traded that document back and forth a couple of times and just fine-tuned it. So, you had to go from 8 hours to an hour and a half and have something of that quality was just amazing, in my opinion, how that
Yeah,
worked.
And what's even cooler now is that it saves that conversation, right? Or that topic. So um it has the ability. So like if I have an email or something, I have emails come back and forth, and I want to say send a reply to this email, and what it can do is it has the ability to reference to the to the storage property that I'm talking about. It knows what if you see that conversation, and it just references all that information, so it knows what it's talking about. It's like going to a person like, hey, you remember I told you last week about this? It knows everything, and it keeps everything flowing. It's like it blows my mind, dude. It's like how I can just do all that, and it just I know I can just copy paste, done, send the email, and for emails, it's a little thing like emails, but still, I think it's pretty cool.
AI is going to put people's real estate business on steroids, especially the ones that coming in, and that's how they're starting to do it. They'll be able to surpass people who've been doing it for years.
Oh yeah, they're gonna crush it, especially when all we hear is complaints about the VAs who are making the calls from people, how bad they are, how they don't know how to ask any questions that aren't answer questions that aren't in the script, how it sounds canned, and people don't like talking to them. Like, there's a lot of that, and I'm pretty sure it's probably Iwanowicz's people that are getting the complaints, but it could be anybody. Sorry, Brett, if you're watching this.
We use VAs also, and we've gone through a ton of them. But the AI is, you're right, it's going to make them obsolete, and there is some human contact, but it'll just jumpstart everybody's business, especially new people, so much farther and faster than the people who start, going back even 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
You got to be careful of the VAs and the AI though, because the technology hasn't caught up to the AIs yet. But I want to tell you something that I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I'm talking to more and more sellers. Well, I mean, let me rephrase that. There's more and more sellers that I'm talking to. When I talk to them, they're like, "Are you human?" I'm like kind of like dumbfounded by that question. Like, what do you mean, am I human? And like, I can't tell you. They say, like this one lady in Panama City. She says, I can't tell you how many people have called me trying to buy my facility, and I can't understand them because either they have an accent or they sound scripted or it sounds like a robot. And she says, because you are talking to me and because we are having a conversation, you know, we need to have a conversation. So I'm in talks with her now. I think I told you guys before, but her husband has cancer, so I'm working through it. It's a challenge. But nonetheless, though, the point of the matter is, though, is that I've established that human connection. Okay. And by doing that, and that my outreach and my marketing, just by having a conversation, a human to human interaction, um, has its, advantages, and so I'm not saying an AI or VA is bad, but there's good and bad everything. And I think that in my opinion, that human interaction, I think is a lot more valuable than, those kinds of things.
I
At least
agree. I agree. No, it's bad on social media because you'll get the ghostwriters and the VAs and the chat GPT, and it's stuff that, like, the chat GPT, they don't even edit it, they just post it, and it's like, this was not written by a human. Like, sorry, nobody does 3 blocks of paragraph text followed by a fourth paragraph that says in conclusion. Like, that's chat GPT. I'm sorry, you're awful and you shouldn't be posting this stuff, and they're pretending it's like it's them. It's like, it's not you, guy.
Yeah.
It's rough. It's rough.
Yeah.
So yeah, the human connection is going to be the differentiator because there's so many people who all sound exactly the same because they're all using the same ghostwriters or they're all using ChatGPT. And so being a real human is going to make all the difference in the world for social media, for like your LinkedIn outreach, for any of the private messages and stuff like that, any communication between your company and the real world. It's more labor intensive. It's going to cost more, but you'll probably end up with a higher success rate because of it. It'll pay for itself. We got 10 minutes left, and I have a hard stop at 10:30, so the meeting's going to end. So we should go through the announcements. The first thing is the Christmas party.
Yep.
It is scheduled. It is on there. This year we are going back to members only. So if you are not a paid member, you are not invited. Become a paid member and you get to go to the meeting. There's usually about 110 people there. It's a good time. We're going back to the way it was pre-experiment last year. So no pizza. So there'll be real food. There'll be wine bottles on every table. There will be raffles and prizes and giveaways. There will be a funny photo booth. We'll have a DJ. We're going to have the step and repeat banner set up so people can get pictures. We'll have a Christmas tree with funny hats and glasses and stuff so people can get pictures. So it'll be like it always has been. It'll just be at Eagle Vale as opposed to going to a restaurant. So
If Andy, with that, you get to bring one guest, right? If you're a paid member, you bring one
correct.
guest.
One guest. Yep.
Okay.
One guest
And
is
how
included
much
with
is
your
it?
membership.
How much is a membership for one and then two people?
I believe membership right now is either 219 or 229 per person. Two-person membership is either 289 or 299. It's like or 269 or 279. It's like $50 up from whatever we decided it was this year. And then we're going back to all of the general meetings will be paid meetings. So you get one free, and if you don't sign up for a membership, you will pay a $30 door fee to get into the general meeting. You'll pay a $30 door fee to get into this meeting. You'll pay a $30 door fee to get into buy, hold, manage if you're doing DIY landlording. So we're shifting back into a fully paid model. There'll still be alcohol and all the good stuff at the meetings and tons of networking, but we're going to kind of peel back a little bit because we're hemorrhaging money on the events with all these free people showing up and drinking our booze and eating our food and not paying us anything. So we're done with that.
Well, and all that to say, well, there's roughly what, 4 to 5 meetings a month you can attend, right?
There's Coffee Club
Is that
weekly on
bring a
Tuesday
number?
or on Mondays. So every Monday at 7:30, there's a coffee club get together. And
Yeah,
then
4, 8.
yeah, 7:30, I think it goes till like 10. And then every week there's a real meeting of some kind. So this week it's us. Next week it'll be the general meeting. The week after that it'll be us again. The week after that it's normally Carl and Beth's landlord buy hold manage meeting, but it's going to end up being we don't do those November or December because of the Christmas and Thanksgiving holidays. So those are a wash. They'll be back in January with those. And then sometimes if there's a fifth Thursday, there's no meetings other than coffee club. So coffee club is every single week, rain or shine. Christmas Eve, Vlad will be there.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to say for what, a couple $100, you can join in or you can get a friend or partner, for $300, you both get to join. And I'm not saying this to promote it to raise money. Trust me, we're a nonprofit. That really just goes towards paying the bills. But this far and away is going to be the best $300 you've spent in your real estate career to attend all these meetings, the holiday parties and all that. So that's why, I stay a member, even though I travel, I stay a member. And no, I'm not going to fly in for the holiday party, but if I'm in town, I'll do it. What other announcements do we have? And Gabe, yes, AI will be a topic. I'm going to say probably spring of next year, whether it's January, February, March, it will be a topic, and AI is coming. You can either put your head in the sand and ignore it. You may as well jump on the train now because it's early. And if you adopt it early, you're going to know it. And you're going to far exceed anybody else that you're competing with, I will say. And your business will go much further. And I think personally in life, you'll go much further too. But other announcements, Andy?
No, sir. I think that covers it for me anyway. I don't have anything else.
Cool.
Oh, vendor night. Vendor night is this month. So next Thursday, come see vendors. Yay. If you are a vendor, like we actually added a new membership for trades. So that's kind of a new highlight. So if we have people swinging a hammer, not selling product, like if you can buy product from them, they're a store. They don't get this rate, but we added a $20 a month or $240 a year trades only membership. So if they're an HVAC tech, if they're a plumber, if they're an electrician, if they are just a general handyman, if they swing a hammer of any kind, if flooring guys, if they're Sherwin-Williams, they're a store, right? They sell flooring and they install. That's a store. They're not a trade. If they just install flooring and they will buy flooring for you and install what you tell them to buy, then they qualify for the lower price membership. But it's really just to add some more value to the members who are always looking for people to show up and do work and show up consistently and make sure stuff is going, you know, the way they want it to. Because if you haven't looked around, it's really hard to get tradespeople to show up more than 2 days in a row. So we're hoping to weed some of the losers out and make sure that they're insured before they can join and all that other stuff. So
Cool. Joe, any announcements or anything you want to say?
No, Andy, you went over everything. We're good. We appreciate Brian being on here and you from Cabo San Lucas there. And hopefully your feet aren't hurting in the sand over there.
Yeah, it's getting a little hot now. You know, the sun's starting to heat up the sand a little bit. So yeah, I gotta get off the beach here and go put my shoes on. But no, thanks everybody for joining. We do appreciate it. We know your time's valuable. Appreciate you joining. Brian, like I said, super glad we're able to get you to join us today. I was excited when you said yes, and I appreciate your work. You with my daughter, and I know you work a lot too, and everybody speaks super highly of you, and appreciate you taking out the time to join us on the Zoom and teach us about house hacking and short-term rentals and all that. But on that, Brian, you got anything you want to add? We're good.
No, I appreciate you having me. Thanks. I know, yeah, Scott, Joe, I appreciate you guys, introduce me to everyone and invite me out here. So no, this is great. And, learned a lot. Thanks.
appreciate it, Brian. We'll have the YouTube video up probably tomorrow some point. I'll send you a link, and if you want the actual video, I can drop it into like a Google Drive or something. You can download it and you can hack it apart, edit it, use it for social media, whatever you want to do. All right.
Okay, perfect.
Sweet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks,
Have a great
everybody.
day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Go do the
Catch you
everybody.
later. See ya.
Bye, guys.
Go do real estate. Have a great day.